and then that vendor is going to bid. Okay, the vendor is going to bid for the price. So he will say that I will pay rupees, or let's say any currency. It can be USD, Canadian dollar, Indian rupees, or euro, any currency for setting up the industry. And what is the condition? Condition is very important here, that the specification must not change, right? In that case, this is called fixed bid project. Now the second project is time and material. The time and material project is nothing but a project which is based on the time I spent, based on the people that work on the project. So if I have X number of people working for Y number of hours, my billing of that project will depend on the actual effort I'm spending. So for example, I don't know what is USB industry. I don't know how much time it may take to set up the industry. I don't know how many units I want to uh, produce or manufacture. So in this case, what I'm doing, I'm giving a very high level summary to a vendor saying that I want to create some USB drives or manufacture some USB drives after, let's say, 1 year, and my aim is to produce good USB drives. So if you see the definition, I'm not very clear. It is not a specification. It is just a description. So based on a description, there will be a vendor who will be expert in setting up the industry. He will approach me. We will sign some contract, okay, as more of a understanding between each other, that depending on my work, I will be paid. And what is my work? My work is going to be defined at a later stage in time. So what is later stage? The entire work will be divided into phases. So phase one is probably analyze the project, okay, then analyze the cost, what is the material that is required, procure the material, and so on. So each phase will require its own analysis, and each phase will require its own specification. The specifications are not finalized at the beginning of the project, but they are finalized in each phase as the project progresses. So this is called time and material project. So when we go for time and material project, when my requirements are not clear, I don't have a clear idea of when the end product needs to be rolled out, I don't have a clear idea on what exactly the end product looks like, okay, then there are certain uh, subtypes of the project types, that is called uh, the projects with the incentives. Okay, what is incentive? Incentive is the additional money given to the vendor. When the vendor will receive the additional money if vendor is doing a good job. So what is a good job? He's either finishing the project before the deadline, or if he is incurring less cost. So typically in time and material projects, which are nothing but billing projects, if my original estimate for the project was $1,000, for example, okay, but at the end of 6 months, when I have my industry set up, the actual expenses were only $900 instead of $1,000. Then what this particular vendor has done? He has done a good job in saving my $100. So when this situation occurs, the contract is written in such a way that there is an incentive for the vendor if he is saving some cost. So out of $100 saving, I may give $20 to the vendor as an incentive. Okay. Similarly, if the vendor is able to ship my first product in 4 months of timeline instead of 6 months, as mentioned in the agreement, then I will give him X dollar as an incentive. Okay. So any questions on the project definition and types of projects?
No.
No. I had a quick question. Are the slides supposed to be changing, or you have not changed them yet?
No, we are yet to change the slide. We are still on the project slide.
Okay, perfect. All right. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm still on the first slide. Is that where we're still on?
Let me probably change it, and then you will understand the difference. So this was the previous, and this is the next.
Well, it's not showing up on mine. I think it's still on slide 1.
It's not on mine either. I'm still on 1.
You're still on 1 also?
Yeah.
What is the slide?
I just wanted to make sure.
What is the slide that you see now? What is the heading?
Business Analyst Training for Beginners.
That's what I see.
Okay, then let me reshare it probably.
Okay. Okay, yep, it's we're on an agenda now.
It's on the agenda.
Yes, that's what I see.
Yeah.
What do you see now?
Now we're back
I see it went back to the main one. The first one.
Okay.
First slide. Okay.
Is it on the agenda now?
Yes.
And now trainer's introduction?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we are good now. Okay, so we just a recap. Okay, we started with introduction, and then we saw what is the difference between product-based company and service-based company with an example of car manufacturing company and a car cleaning services company. Then we saw what is a project. Okay, we saw a formal definition of the project, and then we got into an example of the project. We understand the difference between the operations work and the project work. Then we saw some characteristics or conditions of a project, that it is a temporary, it has to be unique. And then we saw some project types with example. So far we are good?
Yes.
Okay. So next is pre-project activity. Okay. So what is the starting point of the project? Okay. When we say that the project has started, so project doesn't start abruptly. It has to have some activities that happen in the background, which are called initiation activities or pre-project activities. Okay. Now let's consider it from the business perspective. Okay. I'm a businessman. In our example, I am the one who wants to set up USB industry. So in this case, what I have is an idea, right? So this idea, is it enough to start a project? No. So idea needs to be further analyzed. So this analysis work of idea until actual project kickoff is nothing but pre-project activity. Fine. So what I will do, I will do some initial analysis on my own based on the features or based on the capabilities of my USB and based on the capabilities of my USB manufacturing unit. So my unit should be like this, my unit should have this, my unit should have this department, and so on. Then the end product, which is nothing but USB drive, how my USB drive should be. So this is some internal analysis that I have done. Let's call it as homework. Okay. Now, because I have to deal with an external vendor who is going to set up the industry for me, what I will do? I will go with a process wherein I will have certain documentations in place. Okay. Just to make sure that the terminologies or the activities which I'm talking about are the same from the vendor's perspective. So to be on the same page. Okay. So what are these documents? So first is RFP. So RFP is a request for proposal document in which the business need is specified. Okay. So business need, who has a business need? I as a businessman has a business need, right? So who creates this document? The industry or a business creates this document. Okay. So typically the RFP is published on the website of these businesses, industries. It can be USB manufacturing company, it can be a bank, it can be a telecom company, it can be a utility company. All these companies, whenever they need any service, they will go through a process which we are discussing now. And as a starting point of the process, what they will do, they will put their understanding analysis into a document which is called request for proposal. So this request for proposal is nothing but a document in which all my expected outcomes on a high level are mentioned. So it has to mention that what I expect from this project, what it should have. It should have this, it should have this, it should have this. But at this moment, I don't have clear understanding or idea of the specifications. At this point in time, I may not be talking about the specifications, right? All I know is I should be able to have a USB as an end product. I should be able to set up my industry, and that's it, right? So RFP may not give you all the details. It will of course talk about the product that this project should be capable of producing. Now this RFP, as we discussed, is published on the website of the business, and it has a form which is called request for information. So request for information is nothing but information of a vendor that is required. Okay. Now I have published the RFP. I have attached a form called RFI, which is request for information, to it. In this form, what I'm doing, in this form, I am asking for the information from vendor's information. Okay, again, this is on a very high level information. So maybe some contact number, what is the strength, what is the experience in the domain, that's it. We are not talking about any money at the moment. What we are talking about is I want this and I expect you to fill up the form when you respond on my RFP. Okay, so typically the RFP has a timeline. Okay, during this time you should respond on the RFP. Okay, so this responses on the RFP are given by the vendors. Okay, so these vendors will respond on the RFP. They will understand terms and conditions and they will respond saying the interest, I'm interested, right? Along with that, they will fill up the RFI. In the response, they will mention they are interested, their capabilities, how they are better than the others, and so on. We are not discussing the cost part yet. Okay, this is just a first phase. So has any one of you had a chance to work on RFP?
No.
No.
Okay. So it is also called as pre-sale activity. Okay, we have not sold the project from the business side, so this is called pre-sale activity. Now the next is RFQ. When I have received responses from 10 vendors on my RFP, I know very much who are the players, right, in the industry, who are the vendors in the industry. Now I will sort them. I mean, I will analyze their responses, and I can probably outrightly reject a couple of them because their reputation is not good, because I think they're too small, because I think they're too big, and based on number of reasons. And I don't need to disclose any of these reasons to anyone, right? Because we have not done any agreement or a legal contract yet. Now, out of those 10 vendors, what I will do, I will select 8 vendors. As I said, 2 were rejected. 8 vendors will be asked to provide a quotation. Okay, so the quotation is nothing but a high level summary of the price that I have to pay for my project. I have to pay that cost or price to the vendor. So those 8 vendors have to fill up the RFQ in the prescribed format. So it will ask for details on the cost. Mainly we are interested in overall figure. Okay, as in this project will cost me 1 million euros. Okay, or this project is not going to cost me more than $2 million. This is the uh, result that I'm expecting from this. Okay, I'm not very much interested at this point in time on the stages of the payment. Okay, when I have to give my first 50,000 euros and second 50,000 euro installment and so on, we're not bothered of that at this moment in time. This RFQ is more of the overall price that I have to pay. Okay, before this phase RFQ, there is a possibility that the vendors may not be able to give me this figure or cost based on my high level information provided in the RFP, right? Because RFP, we said that is a high level document. So on the high level document, how can I arrive at a cost? I as a vendor. So that's why there is usually a round of discussions between RFP and RFQ. Okay. In the RFP, 10 people had approached me. I rejected 2 of them. So I invited 8 others for meetings. In those meetings, we will be discussing in detail what my project should be. Some sort of specifications will be produced, and those specifications will act as input for the next document, which is RFQ, request for quotation. So request for quotation has to have some sort of specifications in place, which are often produced between RFP and RFQ stage through meetings. Okay, so usually the pre-sale team is involved in those meetings, discussions, understanding the specifications and drafting the RFQ. Now, RFQ from the vendor's perspective is a sensitive document, okay, because it has the price that they have quoted. So we will not be we may not be the people who will be creating RFQ, but we as a business analyst will certainly be involved in preparing RFP. Okay, RFP responses. RFQ of course requires our input, but the cost or the money part is usually entered by a senior people like a vice president of the department, along with the inputs from finance team or even the CXO office, CEOs and CTOs. Okay, so at this point, where are we? We have given a quotation response. We as in vendor. So vendor has given a quotation response. So these quotations are further analyzed by the businesses. Again, there will be a round of negotiations, discussions. Things will go back and forth because there's a competition. We have selected 8 vendors out of 10. So all of 8 will give their RFQs responses. So all 8 of them will be probably called for the meetings, or even 5 of them will be called for next meetings. In the next meetings, there will be discussions around cost, quality, deliverables, and so on. And then finally, the businesses will select one of the guys or one of the companies to do the work who has won the project. So he is good from technical perspective, he is good from financial perspective. They believe that this guy will deliver the project on time with the quality, and so a project is awarded to that person. So usually there is an agreement that this project has been awarded to you and agreed cost is 1 million euros and so on. Okay, this point marks the selling. So we have sold the project to a vendor. From vendor's perspective, he has won a project, right? Now the next stage is still important, which is called statement of work. Statement of work is nothing but a minute or a low level detail of the specification of what is expected and when it is expected, what is the set of acceptance criteria. Okay, you are delivering something, but I may not accept it as a working solution, or I may not accept it as a product with a great quality, right? So all those quality measures and acceptance criteria are also mentioned in this document, which is called statement of work. And importantly, it has got timelines when I have to deliver a product and so on. Also, there is a financial detail that at the time of delivery, I expect 10% payment of this product, right? If I'm delivering 10%, I should get 10% as a payment. So these details are nothing but SOW documents. So SOW is a single document per project. SOW marks the initiation of the project. Remember, till SOW we were in the pre-sale stage. Okay, SOW or winning a contract is nothing but finishing of a sell stage. After sell stage, we enter into a project stage. That is why the first document on the project is SOW. SOW is the document that a business analyst must refer to in order to understand the scope. Okay, the scope of the project is very important. We will discuss it in the later slides, but a business analyst needs to often refer to this document, which is called SOW. He will not require to refer RFP, RFQ, and any other documents, but SOW is a mandatory document. Okay, so that was a big slide, I think. I hope you're still with me. So, any questions?
No, we're good.
Okay. So we'll move to the next slide. This is IT project structure. Okay. Now, before we jump into this, let's understand this entire scenario from a software or IT world. Okay. So what is an IT company or software company? It is essentially a vendor who is providing services to client or selling a product to a customer. So again, the terminology is important. Client is often referred when it is a service-based industry. Okay. Customer is often referred when it is a product-based industry. It is in the sense the vendor. So, okay, I'm a vendor who produces or who creates the products. So example is Cisco. Okay, Cisco has n number of products, right? I sell these products to my businesses or to my customers. these customers pay for the licenses of these products, and then they use this product. So in the Cisco world, this particular business house is called a customer. Okay. Now there is another vendor called Cognizant. So Cognizant is into services. Cognizant prepares or creates solutions based on the requirements from the clients. So clients will give the requirements and Cognizant will create a solution, a software solution. So in the Cognizant world, people use the terminology client, right? So entire process of pre-sale, which is RFP, RFQ, SOW, is applicable to an IT world as well as a non-IT world. So this process is typically a business process or a selling process. It doesn't change with respect to industry. So whether you are working in IT or non-IT, this process will remain the same. RFP, RFQ, and SOW. Now, when we got a project, what we have to do? We have to create a product. We have to create a software solution, right? Because I need to meet certain objective of the business, which is outlined in the SOW. So SOW is my guideline. SOW is my Bible, right? So SOW mentions my objective goals, final outcomes, deadlines, quality measures, everything. What I am doing, I'm essentially chasing SOW. In order to do that, I need people, right? And hence a project team is required, right? So project team is nothing but a set of people who will be working on the project in order to meet the SOW objectives. Now typically an IT project consists of a number of roles, right? So can anyone tell me the IT project role, which is probably not mentioned here?
Business analyst.
That's right. Any other role which is not mentioned here?
Hmm. I don't think so.
Have you heard of database administrator or any server administrator role?
Oh, I see that. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Gurvinder, you were saying something?
No, I didn't quite understand. Like what were the business analyst is not mentioned here.
Right.
Or, okay. That's
Yeah.
That's the only one that I saw.
Yeah. So right, business analyst is not mentioned here. So that is one of the roles. Then I said there are certain administrative roles like server administrator, database administrator, right? Then there are large projects where just project manager is not enough, right? We have certain departments which assist the project managers. We call them project management office, PMO. Okay. So yeah, the point is depending on the nature or size and type of the project, each project will have a number of roles. Okay. Now it is not mandatory that every project must have the same set of rules. I mean, the people roles. The people roles are defined, as I said, by type, size, and the nature of the project. So if a small project exists, probably there is no technical architect at all. There is a technical lead who is acting as a technical architect. Okay, or if there is a very small project, then this QA manager may not be required. The project manager himself is acting as a QA manager, right? So it is not mandatory that each project will have distinct people for each role. Often one person is doing multiple roles. This is very much a possibility. Okay.
Yes.
Now let's probably go on this particular slide in a brief way. So there are business stakeholders. Who are the business stakeholders? Any idea?
The
Go ahead.
like the people who have invested actual money in the company,
Right.
who have
Right. That's right. So who are they? Let's say there is a company who is producing what USB drives, and there is a vendor for that. So who is actual business stakeholder?
the other side
You say who was
so the client.
stakeholder of that company?
Yeah. So business stakeholder is a client or customer who is
Yeah,
paying
the
for
client.
the service or paying for the product, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what about these SME technology head? Who are they generally?
I would say the people who know more about the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so whom do they belong to? Do they belong to client or vendor?
I think the upper half is belongs to the client, right?
Okay.
Like subject matter experts, they also belong to the client.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that typically the business stakeholder is a client or customer, that's fine. But the subject matter expert is the terminology which is used in the IT world for a vendor's role. Okay, so subject matter expert means I'm an expert in the banking domain, I'm an expert in the telecom domain, or I know Oracle applications better, I have in-depth knowledge of Cisco applications and so on, so I'm an SME. Okay.
Okay.
So similarly, technology head is generally a position who is responsible to make technical decisions, whether I should implement this in Java or .NET, or how I can save the cost on the servers. If I buy this kind of server for this type of project, I might save some cost and so on, right? So these are more of a consultative roles where these guys may not be part of the project. Okay, what does it mean? They are shared among the various projects. They're not dedicated resources on a particular project, but they are shared across projects. Whereas this particular team, technical architect, project manager, QA manager, production support, these all are dedicated to the project. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had a quick question. So once a project is selected and so the technological head and the subject matter expert, they basically they make the decisions kind of like what platform to use and what server to use, and once that's said, it gives it like then the team comes in and takes over. Is that kind of what they do?
Yeah, I would say partially correct, but it may not happen in that smooth fashion. What does it mean? It means that SOW is signed off. Okay, the project is kicked off, right?
Mhm.
At this point in time, you already have project manager, technical architect, QA manager appointed on the
Mhm.
project. You of course have the subject matter experts and technology head, right? So often they brainstorm among themselves during the initial meetings of the project, and they come up with these specifications. That server is needed.
Oh,
What is the server capacity? What is the type of server, and so on.
okay.
Okay, so business analyst who is missing on this, we will of course see where exactly his role is a little bit later. Okay, so for now, let's move ahead. This is a project lifecycle methodology. So project initiation is the first phase. Okay, in the project initiation, the typically it is the point when SOW has been signed off, has been approved. So you define a scope. It is already part of SOW. You just reiterate it. You just reconfirm it with the client. Hire a team. You understand the scope. You do your calculations. You understand that 100 people are required. Develop a business case. Then this business case is generally used for the internal purposes. Okay, why I am taking up this project, right? Then there is a project planning. Based on the SOW, I start planning my work. Who is doing what? Who will be doing what? Okay. Then identify different roles, assign them the responsibilities, create a work breakdown structure. So this third bullet, WBS. What is WBS? Work breakdown structure. It is a document where my entire work or a deliverable has been, you know, broken down into different low-level units. So, for example, I have to have a, a banking application, right? This is mentioned in SOW, right? And then in the SOW, it is mentioned that a banking application should be capable of doing this, should be capable of doing this. So based on this information, what I do is I go to the lowest possible detail of the capability of the application. What this application should be, I mean, what qualities it should have, what features it should have, and overall how it should look like. So as a result, I know that this application should have a login screen. So login screen is one item or unit in my work breakdown structure. Then there has to be a data storage mechanism. So someone who has registered on my website, I should store his data in my database. So that is called database management or database storage. So that is my second unit or item in the work breakdown structure. So this is part of project planning. The ownership of this is generally with project manager, and based on the work breakdown structure, different tasks are created in the system and tasks are assigned to different people, right? So you got the overall journey. There is a SOW which mentions about features. Based on the features, I analyze the features. I find that, of course, I as a project manager cannot do it on my own. So I'll need business analyst. I'll need technical leads to assist me to come up with low level details of the tasks that are required to meet a particular feature. As a result, I will create my work breakdown structure. I will assign each item or task to individual people, and the task will be entered into the system. Okay, then I create a project plan. So project plan is typically uh, set it is typically an aggregation of different plans. So it is schedule, cost, quality, all these have to be considered. So there has to be measure and planning for each of these parameters. How I measure the quality, okay? How I ensure that the scope is not crossed, right? My scope is agreed in SOW. So how I ensure that my scope is not crossed by maintaining it in the project plan. So in the project plan, I will mention that I will do A, B, C. So there is no question of doing D, because if it is not in my plan, I will not execute that task. I will not create that task. I will not assign it to somebody else. So it is important to have a project plan on the project. So based on my planning, the actual project execution will happen. So what happens in the execution? In the execution, developer will do the coding. Tester will do some kind of testing, or he will write a test case, right? So individual member is doing his own delivery or task, is nothing but project execution. And finally, there is a project closure. So project closure is nothing but end of the project. So project may end successfully, or it may need to be closed because of number of reasons. It is not successful, but it needs to be closed because we spend a lot of money. We don't have any success. We don't have time to go to market now. Let's relook at the project later in time, and so on. So during these four phases, the common activity is monitoring and control. In the monitoring and control, I'm checking whether I'm executing my tasks or on time, whether I'm meeting the performance criteria, right? Whether I'm uh, doing the management of the change in an effective way. So I developed something, but client asked me to change. So what is the process to handle that? So entire set of processes related to change management are part of project planning, but the execution of those activities related to change management happen in monitoring and control. So if there is a change request that comes, then I will do this, I will inform this, I'll get an approval, then I will proceed to execute the change. So this is what is the process. This is nothing but project lifecycle on a high level. So any questions so far?
Yeah, good question. So SOW is the scope of work, and the develop business case, like a business case, are those two similar things?
No. So business case is generally identified internally, as I said. It is to justify to internal management why I am taking up the project.
Okay, like basically the requirements of.
So
Okay.
this project is good from the strategic perspective for the organization. This project will lead to
Oh, okay, got it.
create a footprint and so on. So
Okay, makes sense.
because for me, at the end, a project is nothing but a business, right? I'm delivering something, I'm getting money, but at the end, I have to understand why I'm doing it. So that is defined in the business case. So any other
Okay.
question? Okay, so reasons for project initiation. So we already discussed this. So there is a reason why the project exists, right? So there is someone who wants to develop something, launch something, but he doesn't have the skill. He doesn't have resources. He doesn't have time, right? So what he will do? He will outsource that to somebody else. And for that somebody else who is a vendor, that becomes a project. So a bank, right, doesn't have enough resources or skills to develop an IT application. So what will bank do? Bank will usually outsource the work, right? So that outsourcing of a work becomes a project. Okay. And first of all, why bank needs to come up with an IT application is because their competitors are into IT world, is because being on IT will save their cost, is because they can launch things or promotions or new campaigns effectively if they are in the IT world, right? It is easy for them to uh, meet the regulations if they are in the IT world. So there are a number of reasons for a business why they will do an IT project. So I, as a business, should have a certain reason, right? Why I'm investing my money on an IT project. So the reasons are because I can do things quickly, because it increases my market share, it gives me a good competitive advantage, because it needs it helps me to meet market demand, it helps me to grow in a new geography, because it helps me to create a competitive edge, and very importantly, it helps me to meet the regulations, right? So there are certain reason that exists why a business will invest in an IT project, right? So this reason is nothing but an objective of the IT project. So IT project is successful only if we are meeting this objective, right? So delivering on time is fine, delivering within the cost is fine, but ultimately it has to meet the business objective. It has to add the value to my client's business, right? Any question?
No, we're good.
Okay, so we are slowly jumping into business analyst roles and responsibilities. Okay, so very important thing we need to understand is how business work. Any business will have to do a certain function, right, in order to meet its objective. So what is a business? The example is USB manufacturer. Okay, what is the end product? USB, first USB. In order to create the first USB, that particular product has to go through various stages, right? So first is procure the material. Second is check the manufacturing process, follow the manufacturing process, and then probably package the product, then test the product, then release the product. So this entire business is involved. When I say entire business, multiple departments from the business are involved to meet or to come up with an end product, right? So that is the reason why we have to follow a process. There has to be a handshake between one department to another department to ensure that our end product is going to meet the required specification, right? So that is why we have business process. So what is a business process? It is a process that a business has to follow, and it often comprises involvement of different departments. And what is its objective? To meet the product specification, product slash service, right? So different departments are which departments? Any idea? In an industry, what all departments exist? Anyone?
We have finance,
Mm-hmm.
operations, finance. Um, that's all I can think of for now.
Manufacturing,
Manufacturing, distribution,
HR,
HR.
quality.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Quality.
Mm-hmm. So what is a business process? Business process is nothing but a documentation which mentions that what each of these departments have to do, in what sequence, right? Who is providing the data, and the outcome should go to which department, right? So this kind of diagram which you are looking at is nothing but a business process. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the formal definition. Business process is a set of related tasks performed to accomplish a specific organizational goal. So typically a process will have input, it will have output, right? Input is nothing but someone else's output, usually, right? So department A is doing some work, it is producing an output which is acting as department B's input. Similarly, department B's output will act as department C's input, right? So this kind of setup is called business process. Okay, so why we need a business process? Any idea what will happen if there is no business process?
It'll be dysfunctional. Won't meet the goals or overlap of work.
Mm-hmm. So the best example of a business process failure is someone redoing the work or someone not doing the work at all. What does it mean? If there is no business process in place, what will happen? Department A will think Department B will do the job, right? And Department B will think that Department A is going to do the job. So ultimately, what is happening? No one is doing the job, right? Or it may happen that no one is doing the job, let me do this. So the same job is taken up by different departments. So it becomes repetitive. So consider there is a call. You make a call to a customer service of any company, right? So there is a predetermined team that should pick up the call. What will happen if all 100 phones start ringing in the organization, right? It's a problem, right? So process ensures that we are doing work effectively. We are not overdoing it, we are not underdoing it. We are doing it effectively, we are saving the cost, right? And we are delivering the quality, and which will eventually mean the customer satisfaction. Okay, now next is who is project manager. So you often have worked with project manager, heard the term project manager. So can you list some of the daily activities that a project manager has to do? Any idea?
He's basically, I think, in charge of operations, making sure things are being done on time, or kind of he's the one that, or he or she is the one that fully understands. So in this term, the project and what needs to be done, kind of
Okay,
like
that's
controlling,
fine.
yeah, controlling, yeah.
That's fine. So we discussed about one of the documents that project manager is responsible for. What is that?
That is request a proposal, and then a request of information.
Yeah, but request for proposal and request for information are more of a pre-sales document, right? So they are not the documents that are produced by the project team. They are the ones which happen to be before the project initiation. So once the project
So would it be like
initiated, yeah,
SOW then?
yeah, SOW is the one which is kind of input for the all the project activities, right? So yes, SOW is the one which project manager is kind of responsible for. Then we have project plan document, right? And we have WBS, work breakdown structure, where entire work is divided into small units. Remember? You got it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so project manager is the one who is kind of uh, master of all the stages or all the deliverables and all the activities of the project. Okay, so he is not the one who is responsible, but he is the one who is accountable. Okay, so responsible is the one who is actually working on a task or an activity or a deliverable, right? But accountable is the one who will be asked questions on the delivery outcome activity in terms of quality. Okay, or if it is not delivered on time, then who will be the person? Project manager will be the person who will be asked questions. So project manager is kind of accountable for everything that happens in the project. Meeting not scheduled in advance, right? Or meeting doesn't have required participants, or a document not delivered on time, or the team did an excellent job, they finished the project before the due date, or team went an extra mile to achieve the business objectives, they worked overtime, and so on. So all these good and bad things, eventually a project manager is accountable for, right? Again, he's not responsible, he's accountable. That means he will not say that, okay, oh, this has not happened yet, let me do that. No, he won't do that. He will find a person to do that. He will make sure that that particular activity is done with quality and is delivered on time. So that is the role of the project manager. Okay, now here comes a business analyst. So business analyst is the person whose main job is to identify the business needs and to identify the solutions to the business problems, right? So project manager is more on execution. If everyone is doing his job or her job on time with quality and so on, so is a project manager's work. What a business analyst is bothered about: am I meeting my customer's objective? What are my customer's objective? You remember the customer's objective? So these are the objectives: cater market demand, tackle competition, increase market share, and so on. So these are my customer's objective, why I as a company have got this project. So a business analyst must keep these business objectives in mind, must understand the business needs, why a particular requirement is given to me, and he must meet those business objectives. I mean, he will try to meet the business objectives and goals from his deliverables. Also, his job is to find a business his job is to find solutions to the business problems. So what is a business problem? Client may say that, okay, you know what? I'm not able to use my existing system very well because it doesn't have a facility of report generation. That's why I cannot compare my revenues. So what I as a business analyst should understand, okay, customer has a problem in identifying his revenues or comparing his revenue. So is my solution or system capable enough to provide him the revenue analysis and comparison? If not, can I do this in my system, in my new application? Is it in the scope? If it is not in the scope, can I add it to the scope? And so on. So this is the thinking process that a business analyst should have. So business analyst essentially works on the requirements. He captures the requirements, he analyzes them, he discusses those requirements with the technical teams. He gets the solution from the technical team. Of course, he has to propose a solution also. It's not just that you define a problem. You have to define it in a granular way such that the technical lead is able to give the solutions which will work eventually, right? As part of the solutions to the business problem, I may change a process improvement, right? So it's not always a system or a software solution. There can be some manual ways which I should be able to suggest, which will eventually meet my business objective. So you know what? Instead of comparing the revenues, why don't you go to this screen? You will find a graph which will give you the revenue figures, right? So not for every requirement you suggest a system or a software solution. Sometimes your existing software has that capability. You should be aware of that. You should be able to suggest it. So any questions?
No.
So here is the place where business analysts exist in the project. So business analyst is a bridge between business stakeholder and technology head or technical architect, right? So business stakeholder is a person from the client who is giving the requirements, who is telling me his pain points, or who is giving me his business objectives, and the technical head and technical architect are the ones who define the software, who implement the software solution, right? So I am the one who is the bridge between these two. I should understand the business need. I should reword it in such a manner that my technical lead or technical architect understands it and they are able to develop the software solution, right? Increase in the revenue by 15%. Can I develop a software for this? Based on this information, increase in revenue by 15%, we will not be able to develop the software, right? So I have to break down that increase in the revenue by 15% into number of things. Some of the job has already been done in SOW, which is statement of work. I have to refer to the SOW, understand it, rediscuss the things from SOW with the client, refine the details, how I'm going to achieve it, how I'm going to have different screens, solutions, and so on. I mean, I should be able to have a picture of the software in my mind before it is produced. That is very important for a business analyst. Is it clear? Any question?
I'm good.
So what we understand from now is project manager and business analyst are two different roles. Business analyst cannot do project manager's job and vice versa. Business analyst is concerned with the business need, business objective, requirements, and overall client satisfaction or customer satisfaction. Whatever requirement I get, I make sure that those requirements are addressed. Not all requirements are taken up in the software solution. Some of the requirements need to be rejected. Sometimes the requirement needs to be postponed to the next release and so on. But a business analyst is the one who is keeping the track of all the requirements. So why is business analysis important? So business analysis is a work that ensures that no requirement is lost. Okay, this is the shortest definition of the role that we can have. So what are we working for? Eventually we are working for customer satisfaction, meeting the customer objective, business needs, and so on. That's fine. But what my day-to-day work is involved around, it has to necessarily address to one point that I'm not missing any requirement. Again, a requirement is not a very high level statement. It can be a very low level thing, like I should have a button on the screen on the right top corner. So it can be as small as this. So I as a business analyst should be able to capture this, should be able to keep track of this, and should be able to get approvals around this, because client is giving me a requirement. What is my job as a business analyst? I should document it. I should get it reconfirmed with the client in the form of written document, right? So why I'm doing this? So that no requirement is lost or missed. So Hazra, are you good with this so far? Okay, I take it as a yes. No, Hazra, I can't hear. Gurvinder, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Probably Hazra, you have to. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Okay, so role of business analyst. So we already discussed, but probably three important bullets that we already have on the slide. Okay, capture the requirement, analyze them, validate, communicate. Okay, so whenever I get a requirement, I don't just capture it and ask my developer to work on it. No, I have to analyze it. In analysis, what will I do? I will I will start with a question why I have a requirement. What will happen if I don't have a requirement? I will understand a background of the requirement, history of the requirement. Then I will document that requirement. Then I will check if there is a further breakdown of the requirement is possible. Having an IT application for banking, right, is a requirement. To have a banking IT application, this is a requirement. But is it good to go to a developer? No, it is not good. So I, as a business analyst, should break it down. In the breaking down process, of course, I have to talk to client. I have to understand his viewpoints. I have to understand his existing pain points. I have to address them. I have to add all the necessary features to my software specification. So that is nothing but breaking down the requirement, documenting it. Then the next point is communicating this to the development team. After development team has developed this into software, my job is again to validate it, because I was the one who initially gave this requirement to the development team. So development team's output must go through my quality check process. So I have to validate if development team has developed the software according to the specification that I had given to them. So this is about the first bullet. The second bullet talks about the business problems and opportunities. So customer is talking about some business problem. What is my job? I can't simply say that this is not part of the project. I can't simply say that, okay, let's discuss, let's document your business problem and let's address it later. No, I have to give an attention to the business problem. I have to see how can I address that business problem. I have to discuss it internally within my team. I have to check how I can address the problem. Okay. And third is overall project's output should meet the objective. That is very important, right? So I know the project's business goals and objective. I should always meet them. So this is a kind of again a summary. What a business analyst does. He gathers the business requirements. He documents the business requirements. He analyzes those requirements, and then he gives those requirements to the development team. He validates the developer's output, which is nothing but perform acceptance testing. And then for an already developed software, client may suggest changes. Okay, because of regulatory change, now I don't want to see this screen instead of this screen. Can you add this screen or report or anything else? Right? So this is nothing but taking up the change requests. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so we're going to understand what are the skills that a business analyst should have. So as we know, we are talking with the client for clarification of the requirements, for getting the requirements. So of course, a business analyst should have good communication skills. When we say communication, it's not just verbal skill. Okay, it has to be both written and verbal skill, and very important skill, which is listening skill. Right? You have to understand the requirement. That's why you have to ask the questions, and that's why you have to listen to the answers. Right? Until and unless a business analyst listens to the answers, he cannot form the next question, and he cannot get the clear understanding of the requirement. So listening, verbal and written skills are important. Then decision making skills. Out of the two options that we have for the development, I suggest to go with option one because it is cheaper, or because it gives added advantage to the client, because it is easier from the user's perspective. So this is a kind of decision making skill that the business analyst should have. Okay, so eh, the business analyst generally is involved in the project, is involved in the requirement solution. So all the decision making skill will revolve around these areas. So he won't have to make a decision whether to accept a project or not, or what is the cost that we are going to tell to the customer, whether it is $1.1 million or $1.2 million. No, a business analyst is not going to work on that scale. You are working in a project, so a business analyst is working on requirement solution and customer satisfaction. Then problem solving skill. So whenever customer raises a problem, or not even a customer, there is a problem in terms of existing functionality. So some existing functionality is not working for some reason, so a tester has reported it. So you have to analyze that problem, why it is not working, what can be done to make it work. You don't have to think of a code or a programming language related logic, but you have to give a direction. Okay, can we add this small logic here, or can we add a logic on the button click, or can we add a new screen where a user will have this data? If this particular screen is not working, then at least we will have some other screen where the data is shown, and so on. So again, the problem solving skills are related to the software solution. We are not going to solve the actual organization's problems as a whole, right? So you are mainly working on a piece of problem, or on a small problem, but the expectation is that there has to be a problem solving skill. Analytical skill. What is analytical skill? The ability to analyze, right? Or do some mathematics. Simple, quick mathematics related to performance. If my button click requires 2 seconds to get the data, what will be the impact if I have 100 users working simultaneously, right? Will there be any impact or no impact, and so on? So I have to think it from this perspective. So some of the thinking should be on our own. So not every time a client will raise a question, or not every time a tester will report a problem. A business analyst should also be capable of finding problem on his own and then addressing or solving it on his own. So it is very important to relook or revisit what you have done already. Try to find a problem on your own and fix it in advance. And then finally, technical skill. So technical skill uh, is is simple skill of I would say creating a business process in a tool, or creating a wireframe, which is a screen mockup using simple paint, or it can be a SQL query writing skill in terms of database management. Okay, so do I need to have a technical skill in terms of SQL? So the answer is no. If you have it, it is great, but it is not mandatory. But of course, you will need to understand how to create a wireframe or a particular screen mockup. You must be aware of how a business process is modeled. So some business analyst related technical skills are required, but something that is inclined towards coding or scripting is not really required. Any question? Okay, so these are the knowledge areas of a business analyst. So knowledge areas are nothing but the business analyst roles and responsibilities, which are formally documented in terms of areas. Okay, so first knowledge area is elicitation and collaboration. Elicitation means gathering of requirement. Collaboration is related to entire communication that the BA does, right? Next is business analysis, planning and monitoring. Business analysis, planning and monitoring talks about planning and monitoring of the business analysis work. So am I capturing requirements in the best way? All business analysts working per agreement or according to the timelines with the required quality and so on? So it is planning and monitoring the work of all the business analyst related activity. So it can be forming a documentation template, or it can be agreeing with the customer a particular documentation format. So it can be as small as planning a meeting and so on. So everything which is revolving around business analysis. Then requirements lifecycle management, which is nothing but what will happen if a change happens tomorrow. If the requirement changes, what should I do? I should document it, I should get an approval for that, and so on. Solution evaluation. Solution evaluation is what we already saw. Acceptance criteria. I should evaluate the solution which is developed by the developer. Strategic analysis. Strategy analysis means how I'm going to do the business analysis work. That means whether I'm going to follow a certain software methodology or certain other software methodology, or how my documents are going to be delivered to the customer, how my review process will happen in terms of the requirements or solution review. And then requirements analysis and design. This is the core BA skill, which will require the analytical skill in order to analyze the requirements. What is the impact of this requirement? Which screen this requirement impacts, and so on. Okay, any question? Okay, so we saw the knowledge areas of BA. Okay, the next is role of BA and PM. So we already discussed it. So just to probably recap. So PM is the one who is ultimately accountable for all the project activities. Okay, whether a document is delivered on time or not, PM will be asked questions about it. Who is delivering the document? Probably a BA is delivering the document. Fine. PM is more importantly worried about project cost, project quality, project schedule, right? Whereas BA's responsibility is around the requirements. Okay, my client's requirements, are they captured? Are they documented? Are they reconfirmed or approved by the customer? And whether my development team and testing team understands them. This is a role or of a BA. So this is again a comparison between knowledge areas of BA and PM. Okay, so BA is one of the knowledge areas which was not listed here was enterprise analysis. So what is enterprise analysis? Enterprise analysis is analysis of the client's business. So what client is into. So client manufactures something, or he is into banking, or he is into telecom. That's fine. Then what all his products or services that exist today, what type of end customers this client has, whether the end customers are retail or residential end customers, or they are business end customers. So B2B, which is business to business market, or B2C, business to consumer market. This analysis is part of enterprise analysis. Planning and management, as I said, is related to business analysis works, planning and management. So as a BA, am I doing my job delivering document on time? Am I planning my meetings in advance? Have I confirmed with the client about the document format and so on? Requirement elicitation, we know it's requirement gathering. Requirement analysis and documentation, we know it is analysis of the requirement and document that. Requirements communication, communicating that requirement to internal development and testing team. And requirement implementation, it is done by the development team, but as a BA I should be aware of the implementation. I mean high level design, and I should be able to do the acceptance testing. Now project manager on a high level is responsible for integration between various components or modules. Scope management, he has to ensure that we are not crossing the scope, we are not doing things which are not agreed in the scope. Time management, are we delivering it on the time? Cost management, instead of 5 resources which was planned on the project, if I need 6 resources on the project, then this is something the project manager has to look into. Human resource management, it is related to managing the resources in terms of their absence, leaves, and so on. Communication management, so it's the same thing as a business analyst, talking with the client, talking internally, both verbal, written skills. Quality management, related to the quality of the software. If my software is producing a lot of bugs or defects, then a project manager is again accountable for that. He has to minimize that risk. He has to ensure that the is quality measures, I mean quality guidelines are met. Risk management, so PM has to understand what are the risks. If I don't do this on time, if I do this first and I do this activity later, what is the impact? What will happen if my external software is not ready, with whom I'm integrating with. So all these risks will be brought to the attention of the project manager. The job of the project manager is to find a mitigation strategy, or mitigate, or remove those risks altogether by talking to different people, understanding the technical complexity, understanding the dependency, talking to the client, and so on. And procurement. So signing a new contract and anything related to that is related to procurement. So is it clear the difference between the business analyst and project manager? Okay. Then skill set comparison. Okay. The skill sets more or less will be the same that are required for both of these two. Business analyst generally requires very strong communication skills as compared to a project manager, because business analyst uh, deals more with the customer than a project manager. Understanding of SDLC in terms of the life cycle, so requirement analysis, design, implementation, testing, all these phases, what we are doing at the moment, who is doing which task, this both of these two should be aware of. Negotiation skills, both of these require, because ultimately you are dealing with the client, or even if you are dealing with the internal implementation team, you should be able to negotiate a solution. Negotiate means there can be differences in the opinions. You have to control the differences in the opinions and guide the participants towards the goal. Okay, so the business analyst or even a project manager should be of a mindset that what are we discussing? We are discussing this problem. Okay, what is the ultimate goal? We have to meet XYZ business objective. So let's find a solution which will meet the business objective instead of focusing on differences in the opinions. And strong interpersonal and communication and client management skills. Yeah, sorry, did I give the full form of SDLC incorrectly? It is software development lifecycle.
Does that mean like the process of the software,
Yeah,
like the development cycle?
yeah, exactly. So software development lifecycle is the phases or set of phases through which a software is built. So it is
Oh,
initiation, planning, requirement gathering, implementing the software, that is programming, then testing it. So this is nothing but software development lifecycle.
okay.
Now there are certain skills which are different. Okay, business analyst is detail oriented. As I said, business analyst area is a particular requirement. Okay, so for that requirement I should find a problem, I should find a solution, I should talk to the development, I should get the design and requirements signed up by the customer and so on. So if somebody finds any problem in that requirement, if someone finds that in this scenario so and so solution or design will not work, my job is to correct it so that my solution or design is foolproof. Whereas a project manager's job is not to address a particular requirement. His job is to manage a project. That's why he has to have the ability to look into a bigger picture. Project manager controls a project team, right? So he is the head of project team. Business analyst is a more collaborative role where he will talk to the people, understand the working nature of each team, and coordinate or collaborate among them, right? Then business analyst should understand what SME does, subject matter expert, right? They are the developers, testers, or even domain experts. So he should talk to them and again collaborate the work. He should basically understand what is the role of each member. Whereas project manager often doesn't need to talk to the developer. He has to get involved only when there is an issue. If there is any risk, he has to get involved. That's it. And then, as we discussed, business analyst is more about around the requirements. So managing any change in the requirement, addressing the requirement issues or business issues, and investigate the problem. Whereas a project manager is more of a facilitator. He removes the barriers, he tries to mitigate the risks, he will manage the project change control. Okay, so business analyst will inform to the project manager that this particular requirement is a change. It is not something that was agreed initially, but it is something that client is raising now. So it should be termed as a change, right? Actual management of that change will be done by the project manager. So very important last bullet, business analyst should have investigative skills. Why this problem occurred, why this requirement exists, okay, why skills are important. Whereas manager possesses more of management skills. Now, although these are different roles, they have to work together. Business analyst is concerned only with the scope, but scope is a part of a project plan. It is part of SOW. It is part of work breakdown structure. SOW work breakdown structure are owned by project manager. So there is a intersection between a business analyst and a project manager. Something going out of scope, business analyst responsibility to inform to the project manager, and then project manager will take it up with the client team. Okay, then planning, the entire planning is owned by the project manager, but there is a planning related to requirements, there is a planning related to business analyst documentation, which is owned by the business analyst. Test case creation, test case reviews, it is done by business analysts. Okay, depending on project to project, organization to organization, the particular role will change. Okay, but on a broad level, a business analyst is at least responsible for the review of the test cases, okay, by the testing team, created by the testing team. It is falling under execution and control, which is a project manager's responsibility. And last is closure. That is nothing but performance improvement review. Both are responsible to review the performance of their teams. So business analysts team as well as the rest of the project managers team, both these teams performance must be reviewed at the closure of the project. So they are the different roles, but they do intersect a lot during the project's execution. So these are some of the links that we have related to business analysis. So you may refer to them when you are free. Of course, these slides will be shared to you later, so you will have the links with you. Then we are moving to software development lifecycle. We saw it on a brief level, but let's go into details. So software development lifecycle. It is a framework which defines the tasks performed at each phase in the software development process. Okay, so what are the phases? Basically, the phases are requirement gathering or analysis, then design. Design is nothing but writing it on a piece of paper how my software should work, right? This is nothing but a design. It should have so and so screen, so and so button, what should happen on a click of a button. This all detail goes to the design. Then implementation, which is nothing but programming or development phase. Then testing. The testing team will work on the product or a software that is prepared by a development team. So this is overall journey of a software, right from initiation to the deployment. We'll have a lot of details later. So probably let's move to the next slide. Okay, so what we are doing here, we have done a kind of mapping here. Each phase is mapped to the project activity or a project life cycle perspective. So initiation, analysis, and planning, they are part of defining the project scope. Then design and requirement specifications, they are part of again the project scope, but in a detailed way which specifies the features, right? Because project scope or project plan document is not a one-time document. Project plan document, which is owned by the project manager, always keeps on evolving. Okay, as the project progresses, you will have more and more information. Just like at the time of initiation, you know that you have to build a banking software, but later at the time of design, you know actual screens. So the project plan has to get updated. Then development and testing is related to building a product, and finally delivery of the software and supporting the customer's requests on that software is nothing but shipping the product to the customer. So this is the software development lifecycle. Okay, so the first phase is requirement analysis. So requirement analysis is nothing but the analysis of the requirement from various perspectives. So what are the various perspectives? First is cost, second is scope, whether this particular requirement is part of my initial scope mentioned in SOW. Yes, then I will work on it. If not, I will inform project manager as well as client. Then feasibility. Feasibility in the sense, is the requirement very complex? Okay, I will understand it when I talk to the development team. If it is very complex, again I have to raise an internal risk to the project manager. Then this particular requirement, if I implement it, will it cause any issues in the existing software? So that is a kind of risk analysis. So all these analysis items that I will do are part of requirement analysis. Okay, and finally I will come up with a breakdown, right? This requirement will require this to be developed, this to be developed, and this to be developed. So a particular requirement may require only one screen or even just one button to be developed, or another requirement may need 3 or 4 screens to be developed, right? So this kind of analysis I will be able to come up with as part of this phase. Now, very important point is deliverables. So from requirement analysis phase, what I do, I create various documents, right? So some of the documents are functional specifications. So these are the documents that are prepared by the business analyst teams to define how the software should behave. So it will have the functionality explained. So it should have this screen. On click of this button, I will move to the next screen. If I click on another button, I'll get an error message and so on. Software specification document is more of an internal document. How I'm going to meet this functionality. So probably there is a database table that is required, okay, or there is a error code that is required to be maintained in the system and so on. Some level of technical details which will be part of your communication with a development lead. Then user requirement document. So as a user, I should be able to do this. As a user, I should be move to the next screen. This kind of requirements are from the user perspective, so those have to be documented. Use case specification. So use case specification is again a diagram based on the user's interaction with the system. So user will have access to this, user will not have access to this. User X should be able to do this, user Y should not be able to do this. So this is part of use case specification. Addendum indicates any changes to the agreed requirements. So these are the documents or the deliverables from the business analysis phase. Again, not all of these documents are part of each organization. So the documents vary from organization to organization and also from project to project. But the essential thing is we should have some sort of documentation, because when we have documentation, the documentation is sent to the customer and it gets approved. So you have a written proof that XYZ thing has been approved by the customer. So at a later point in time, if client changes his mind, then it is a change that the client has to pay for. Okay, so it is very important to have a documents maintained by the business analyst team. So it's not just communication with the customer, but it has to be documented. Any question? By the way, there are two words on the slide: verification and validation. Do you know the difference between these two? So business analyst has to do both validation as well as verification. What is the difference? Any idea? Okay, so validation is nothing but checking if things are working correctly. If I am able to log in, okay, if I have a good user experience, if I am able to see the screen 1 2 3 4, this is validation. Verification is measuring something against agreed values. I should be able to enter a username with the characters 15 only. Username should not increase 15 character limit. This is a verification. So a business analyst needs to do both validation as well as verification. In verification, he has to measure the things against the agreed values. Okay, next is the role of a BA. This we have already covered, so I don't think we need any other discussion on this, but just important point, which is prioritization of activities. So it may happen that a business analyst is given a lot of requirements, so business analyst has to prioritize them or get them prioritized from the customer client. Not all the requirements can go to the next software release. Probably some of the requirements need to be planned for the next release. So this prioritization is also a responsibility of business analyst. And the last bullet talks about stakeholder engagement. So who is a stakeholder? Stakeholder is any person who is impacted by the project. So stakeholder can be a business sponsor from the client's team who is a vice president, or he can be a tester on the project team from a vendor side. He can be an end user who is working on a software when software is released. So everyone is a stakeholder who has an impact due to the project. So when you capture the requirement as a business analyst has to ensure that all the stakeholders are considered and requirements from all the stakeholders are managed. So it is not just end users requirement. It can be some of the senior management requirements related to reports that the business analyst has to be aware of. The next is the design phase. So we were in the requirement analysis as the first phase. Second is the design phase. So design phase, as I said, is related to the detailed design documentation phase, where a business analyst is going to prepare the screen layouts, also called as wireframes. He's going to capture the business rules. So what are the business rules? Business rules are the rules related to the software, but because of a business need. An example is, if customer is a business customer, then do his credit check, understand if he has a good credit rating or credit score, right? So this kind of business rules have to be in place in the software, so they need to be maintained or mentioned in the document, which is design documents. Then there will be a process diagrams, which is business process diagram, that need to be part of the design document. So design phase is the next phase of analysis, and hence it has got next level of details in terms of the requirements. So what BA does in our design phase, because we are saying that design phase is a detailed phase, detailed technical design specification. So BA has to discuss with the mainly development team, understand how the requirement can be met. So there can be multiple options. So he has to drive the discussion with the technical team, select one of the best possible options, document that option in the detailed design document in the form of screen layout, in the form of business rules, business process diagram, and so on. Also, business analyst has to talk to some SMEs like UI expert, user interface experts, who understand the system from the user's perspective better. So placement of a button or a placement of a particular element on the screen, whether it has to be on the left or right or border or corner or middle section of the screen, a particular user interface expert understands it better. So BA has to have a discussion with him for designing wireframes or screen layouts. So that is the role of the business analyst. So this is the development phase. So developers will have input. What inputs they will have? They will have functional design document, they will have use case document, they will have design documents. Based on this, they will do their development. What will do business analyst will do? Business analyst will answer the development's question. So if entire documentation is already in place with very good quality, there will be less questions to the business analyst, and hence business analyst's role will be a bit relaxed in this phase. But usually business analyst has to clarify the requirements and ask and answer the questions. In the testing phase, the same thing. QA team is going to prepare the test cases, execute the test cases. Business analyst has to answer them. So business analyst will review the test cases, and he may get involved in the defect prioritization. So a particular defect has to be fixed urgently. This is something business analyst can tell based on his discussion with the client. So because business analyst understands which requirement is high priority requirement. Release and maintenance. So business analyst will be involved in preparing some training materials. He will be involved in preparing some system or production environment documentation and some of the client problems. And this is the last part where we are going to see some current trends. So current trends are that the businesses are dynamic, businesses are agile. So you won't get all the requirements upfront in one go. So you have to have a client relationship in order to get the requirements as the project progresses. So you won't get everything in one go. You have to talk to client multiple times, right? Then you have to understand the value that you are going to add to the client's business. It's not just adding a screen or a button, but you have to understand what value it adds ultimately to the business. You have to understand what BA approach is, how efficiently you can manage the business analysis work. Do more communication in terms of verbal, written, and also the listening things. And ultimately, it's always a plus to be a bit technical. It's always good to be a bit technical in terms of understanding the system behavior, computer architecture, and so on. So that's the overall topics for tomorrow. Types of SDLC methodology: waterfall, incremental, iterative approach. These are all the types of SDLC methodology. Prototype approach, spiral approach, rational unified approach, and so on. And finally, very important, which is a new trend, that is agile methodology. So we'll be focusing on software development lifecycle tomorrow. We'll see all the different software development lifecycle methodologies. So any questions so far? Okay, if there are no questions, then thank you very much for your time, and let's meet tomorrow.